Hey YouTube, welcome back to Universe X TCG or Uni X TCG. First and foremost, before we jump into the content, I do want to thank you guys for your overwhelming support for the One Piece content that's been coming out lately. I've just been having a blast playing this game, and I like making content, so when I can bring those two things together, it's just a joyous time for me. It's a ball, and it's really helping my YouTube channel grow. It's helping me get closer to my dream of being a full-time content creator. So I am very, very excited for what's to come in the future. For you guys waiting on the results for the contest, we are doing that. This is a kind of busy time. You can see my backdrop is boxed because I am in the process of moving. So I am tallying that up and I'm getting that ready. You guys will have your results soon enough. I just need to make sure everything is in order so I don't get caught lacking. Past that, for anybody that's coming to this channel for the first time, yeah, we're going hard. This is Dragon Ball Super off season. One Piece has just started, so we'll be going hard in One Piece, and right after the Treasure Cups in February, Dragon Ball should be starting back up, so we'll be playing both games because set 2 of One Piece will be coming up, and I just actually set my pre-order, so we're going to have a lot of pack openings, and we're actually going to be giving away one of the Film Red starter decks in February, and then we'll also be giving away another starter deck, one of the black starter decks in March. You know what? Let me know in the comments if this video can get up to 100 likes. I'll add one more giveaway Film Red starter deck in February and one more Marine starter deck giveaway in March. So I'll be giving away 2 of each if this video can hit 100 likes. So let's see if we can get it there. Now, without further ado, we're going to jump into the main part of the video, and if you want to support the channel, just like the video, comment as you guys have been doing, join the Discord if you want to talk elsewhere, and subscribe if you want more content. All right, let's hit it. So now that you guys can see the chart, this is what I call the current meta flow. You're gonna see a couple of leaders on here. There are some leaders that I have omitted. For instance, Kazuki Odin. I haven't put in things like Crocodile. I haven't put in things like King. That's because this is what I would consider a meta. Like decks you are most likely to see when you sit down at the table for not only just your locals, but treasure cups as well. And we're gonna get into this because you're gonna see there's a main triangle and then there are 3 decks to the side. And I'm gonna explain why that is. Because I feel like this current format, which you're going to be seeing in set 1 in global, is essentially a triangle for these couple of decks, and then there's a couple decks that sit outside of that triangle, but for more or less reasons they don't fit into that mold. So let's actually get into this. Probably going to be our shortest video that we've put out on One Piece in the past week, but in the triangle, what you're going to see as a Kid, the red decks in Zoro and Luffy, and then blue Doflamingo. So when it comes to this, I'm going to start out with the Zoro and Luffy because those are probably the most popular, the most prevalent. You see those kind of everywhere. They both fill the role of red aggro. However, Zoro is able to pump up the entire board, and it's allowing your field to go much wider with every last hit counting. You're turning 4K 2-drop vanillas into 5Ks that can go neutral with your opposing leader. You're turning 2K Namis into 3Ks, and only need 2 Dawn to go sideways if you want to maximize the use of your Dawn. You're turning your Zoros that are 5K into 6Ks, your Robins that are 4Ks into 6Ks when you attach one for her effect and you have one attached to your leader. So really, Zoro is going to be able to go wide, and it's going to be able to do that faster, or deal damage faster in that regard, because these things, while you're going wide, are going to have that extra attack. He's the lower to the ground, faster rush deck. However, Luffy, combined with the 1-drop Nami for his ability and the 1-drop Nami's ability to move Rested Dawn to threats, he is going to be able to make a little more oomph in your cards. You know, you play a 1-drop. You use Luffy's ability to put that Dawn that you play for the 1-drop under Luffy. Luffy sinks for 6 instead of that, normal 5K leader swing, and you didn't waste any Dawn. You played a card, you used that Dawn effectively, more than effectively actually. He's going to be like Zoro in the sense that he's almost always swinging for 5. However, this is going to enable certain cards. If you have a single 1-drop Nami out that will put a Dawn under something, arrested Dawn, he automatically, this Luffy leader in that 1-drop Nami automatically will turn on your Sanjis, your rush Sanjis, and they'll automatically turn on your rush Luffys to not be blockable. And so he's going to be able to utilize certain cards a little differently. Robins won't have to take up an energy every turn. You'll just need to play something, or Dawn every turn. You'll just play something and then use Luffy's effect or Nami's effect. On top of this, he changes up the battle math. If you guys have seen anything that I've done with the kid profile, I've told you, in the magic numbers, I've told you, like, if they're having a blank field, right? Or they have a field but they can't swing through your blockers. If a Zoro deck is going to play Luffy, they are tapping 5 for Luffy, they're putting 1 under their leader, and then they're putting 4 of their additional Dawn under Luffy to make him an 11k. 10k, well, 6k base, 10k from the Dawn, the 4 Dawn under him, and another 1k, you know, making him 11 from the leader. And that's the math you need to worry about. 2 2ks and you've broken it. However, in a, sorry, cat doing cat things. Say hello to the camera. But that being said, when you have Luffy, that same play is different, because as a Luffy player, you would play that same Luffy for 5. You would be able to put 5 Dawn underneath him, making him 10. But then you could put an extra Dawn under him, making him 11. With making him, actually he's 6k. Yeah, so you put that 5 Dawn under him, making 11, and then using the leader skill, you're putting another Dawn under him, being 12. And if you have a 1-drop Nami on the board, you can make him 13. And that's a much bigger number. At this point, you need 3 2Ks in hand to break that kid swing, that unblockable Luffy swing on your kid. So Zoro lowered to the ground faster, whereas Luffy is going to have more mid-range late game possibility because he makes that Dawn go the extra range. Now these two both have a pretty good matchup versus Dofy, mainly because you can start hitting Dofy hard and fast before Dofy can establish the board necessary to wall you out. Not to mention, both these decks have access to, you know, the 5-drop Luffy, as well as Diablo Jambe, as well as Shanks. So you're gonna have a lot of times where you can swing past a lot of their blockers. And that's actually a very important fact. You get them down low enough to 2 life or 1 life, and you can make some hits count very, very, very hard. Especially seeing is that once you put out a Luffy, all they can do to bounce it is play a Mihawk, which would be the best thing, or a Dofy to bounce it back to hand. If they play a Dofy to bounce it back to hand, they're locking out most of their Dawn for the turn, and you can just replay that Luffy. So hitting them hard and fast can sometimes destabilize. Now, they can very much so set up on you. You don't draw aggressive enough, you're not playing the game aggressive enough, they draw top tier, they can put you in a position. Blue can. But a lot of the times, Blue's best bet at losing is red bum rushing them and putting them down to 1 before they can get their hard cards on the field and swinging past their blockers. Moving on to Dofy. Dofy has a very, very, very nice spot because just by using Dofy's leader effect, you were swinging for 7k, which is the magic number as a swinging on a 5k. You swing for 7k, they gotta drop 2 2ks just to drop it, or they gotta drop even more 1ks, and that's just something you don't want to do. So moving to that, you're able to play the normal blue extra suite. You got Love Mellow, like those things are doing very, very, very good things. You got Spada, you're rearranging the top cards of your deck to make sure that you're always sequencing your Dofy effects well, and then you rearrange your cards and you know that you're getting your Dofy effect, but then you know what you're going to draw next turn, and then you know if you don't draw any more cards between them, you're going to be able to Dofy again and then get that perfect thing. So it requires a lot of mental work because you got to keep track of what your plays were. But when piloted well, it's going to do extremely cool things, and it's able to build a board out of almost nothing. You stack a Gecko Moria on the top of your deck, and then you use a Dofy effect, and you add a 5k body to the field, but then you bring back a Boa from hand, but then you tap 4 for a Boa. You just went from whatever your field was to a +2. Using 7 energy, you played 2 bodies. 2 bodies that would normally cost 8 energy to play correctly. And then you still have an energy to put under Boa. That's crazy. Now Boa can, well, I mean, you wouldn't want to put her on because she's, no, actually, yeah, you got her from hand from the Gecko. You got her from grave from the Gecko, and you're playing her. So you can put a Dawn underneath Boa, and now if she blocks, she's going to draw you a card. And you can probably defend that too. So, that being said, you've got a lot of explosiveness, defensive walling explosiveness, and adding bodies to the field. Because if that Gecko Mori and that Boa doesn't get handled, they can both go at your face for 6k next turn easily. So, you have a lot of things you can do with this deck, and then once you start adding Dofys and or Mihawks to the board, you really start just hitting your opponent with attacks that are almost too big to counter against. They can only counter against 9Ks, 7Ks so many times before it gets a little just ridiculous. And if you don't have to play a card that turn, you start attaching Dawn to it, making it 8K, 9K, and those are ridiculously hard to counter out of. So you really need need to block it or take it. And that's where the clock gets to. While you, for the early parts of the game, drain your hand with Dofi swings that you'd have to take or whatever, and then put you on a 2 to 3 turn clock with Dofis or Mihawks. So that's pretty much that. Now, the reason why it has such a good matchup versus Kid is because Green can control the board extremely well. Green can also press very well. The one thing Green doesn't have the most of is hard removal. Green can tap the things you don't want them to be tapped for, or tapped against, and then swing on them for some heavy damage, but they still have to physically connect. What this is also able to do is, like, you're able to build a huge board of cards that just start getting you advantage turn after turn after turn. Your Bonnies, your Momonosuke's, your Raizens, you're able to sit those, and every turn those cards stay on the board, they get you a plus. The first turn you play Raizen, he's a -1. But, I mean, he makes a body, but you lost a card in hand. The first turn you activate its effect, you're well above break even. You gotta swing in on something, and you just drew one. Same with Bonnie. She's a break even the turn you play her and use her. Same with Momo. But the second turn you activate them, the same copy, it's a plus. So Raizen, Bonnie, Momo, you're gonna get pluses throughout the entire game, provided they stay on the field. And Green has a lot of ways of protecting them. You've got blockers, you've got Paradise Waterfall that can not only defend a chump swing, like, oh, I'll swing with a 2K on your Bonnie. Okay, I'm gonna Paradise Waterfall to 3K, untap Bonnie. So you got a lot of things like that. However, Dofi has an excellent ability to start bouncing all those things back to hand. Your Teach is going to bounce them to hand. You know, you'll play a bigger body like 7-drop Kid, or if you might play your Law, and they could just bounce those with Dofi. They can bottom deck them with Mihawk. They can hit quite a few of your cards and just be like, now put that back or so help me. If they're teching Jinbeis, they can Jinbei your 1-drops to the bottom of the deck and be like, I hope you don't see those again. Like, there's a gajillion things they can do, but the point is, Blue is able to interact with your board without swinging. And then once you get chipped down low enough from Dofi, you're going to be able to be playing 7-drop Dofis, 9-drop Mihawks, and you're going to be able to swing in and just ruin those like life totals. So Blue generally has a pretty good matchup versus Green. It's hard for Green to do it. Blue has to draw pretty badly. Like, I've tried to push Blue. I think I'm still solving the matchup. And I did better than I had in my other 2 instances in these tournaments in the last box tournament I played in. But even so, sometimes they're just able to be like, oh, okay, we're at this crucial time and I have 2 Dofis on board. Cool. I'm just going to blocker, blocker, blocker. And then you're sitting there like, I can't take that last 2 life. But next turn they will swing with 2 Dofis and a leader Dofi, and that's too much for me to bear right now. So there becomes that issue. Like, that's that. Now moving on to Green. You guys have already seen my Green video. Law. Kid is excellent at building a board. Kid is excellent at maining. You just main cards that go so hard in the advantage game. The longer they're on the field, unmolested, the longer you're just going to, or the bigger your hand's going to get, the more options you're going to have, is great. Not to mention that when it comes down to push, come to shove, Kid is 100% capable of putting his hands up and showing you what for. And when you get down to 1 life with no blockers, Kid is the most destructive leader in the game. He can just literally swing on you twice for 12, and good luck blocking that. So Kid is just, like, I've closed out more games with the leader himself than I have with, like, any other deck. Kid is just that dude. Now, we already explained his matchup with Blue, but where it comes in with Red is that Kid has so many tapping effects and the ability to swing twice and a lot of things that swing and blockers that Kid is very much so capable of taking some hits, blocking some hits, countering some hits, but getting rid of almost anything that gets turned sideways to you the following turn. Even things you don't want sideways. You know, you got a 1-drop Nami, cool, I'll tap that, I'll swing on it. And by the time you stabilize behind 8-drop Kid and 2 blockers, or 8-drop Kid and 1 blocker you can depend on, there's nothing that Red can really do outside of playing Shanks. Like, as long as you have 1 to 2 blockers, they can't go 10 Dawn on their leader and swing for 15. So they have to try to play an unblockable thing, or try to split into 2 attacks. And if you're splitting 2 attacks, there's not really any way, unless you already had like a 7K or 8K on board, that you're getting past an 8-drop. And that's the rough part. You swing and you get blocked, and know that that Kid is coming in for at least 9K on your face, or sorry, on your threat the next turn. And by the time you get to turn 6-ish, 5-ish, 6-ish, Red shouldn't really have a hand if you're playing the Green matchup correctly, because Red doesn't plus, it just filters, it just breaks even. So Green almost completely manhandles. Something has to go very wrong for you to lose like a matchup to red. So that's that triangle. And all these decks, like the green and red decks are very popular. Dofy might be getting up there. Lots of people do like Dofy as a character. But then we're going to move over to the side. You see 3 decks here, and they all have different purposes. You feel me? Kaido. I have 2 things here. Kaido is a ramp deck. He ramps and he has hard removal. That ramp is very dependent on seeing your field spell because all the other ramp cards are one-offers. You use it and then they're gone. You use it and you have to minus to go up in energy. Or Dawn. But Kaido himself has a very unique effect of removing 7, blowing up some, or blowing up, critting one of your lives. I say critting, basically taking one of your lives and putting in the trash. You don't get it, you don't get any effects. Very, very nice. But Kaido's cards main very much so removal. You got both kings that destroy things. The 9-drop Kaido destroys things. The only board wipe in the card game right now in the 10-drop Kaido. And because of this, it is very hard to maintain board setups versus Kaido. However, the thing about Kaido is Kaido has some inconsistencies built into the deck. When you don't see Onigashima, your curve is very, very different. You have to think very much so more consciously about how you use your Dawn. You can end up drawing into all your defensive cards, but not seeing any of your bombs. And you may think, run more bombs. But all of Kaido's bombs do not have counters. And because of that, running too many bombs or seeing too many of them early game leave you almost defenseless to the onslaught of, per se, red, and in some cases even green. Now, I will say that a naturally good matchup for Kaido is Dofy. The reason for that is that Dofy's cards, its top end cards, cannot affect most of your important cards. The best thing they're doing, using Dofy or Mihawk, are bouncing a queen to your hand to the bottom of your deck or a small blocker. Other than that, your 7-drop king can also be blocked, or can also be bounced as well. That's another thing. But your Kaidos, nope. And any deck that doesn't get you below 2 health, generally 2 health, maybe less, maybe 1, more likely 1, is susceptible to being 10-drop Kaido'd for game. Once your board gets wiped that late in the game, yeah, you can reestablish it. But Kaido's going up to, if they have Onigashima, they've gone down to 4 Dawn, Onigashima up to 5, and they're going up to 7 next turn, meaning that you can get hit with a follow-up king, blowing up what board you were trying to recreate. There's a lot of things. And also, once that 12k body 10-drop is on the floor, on the field, he's swinging into pretty much everything, and you're not doing anything about it but letting your stuff die or taking that life. So really, the reason why I have Dofy as a check mark here is because Dofy is a generally negative matchup for Dofy. It's a great matchup for Kaido. But the reason why I have my cat doing things. Stop, move. But the reason why I don't have any other things listed here is just mainly because Kaido has a pretty even matchup versus everything in the game, minus maybe blue, purple, Crocodile from what I hear. Because if Kaido curves out, if Kaido sees Onigashima on its 2nd turn, if Kaido sees the correct mixture of bombs versus defense, there's not many decks that can do anything to Kaido. Kaido will tear through your board like wet paper. Kaido will swing over every body it doesn't want on the field that's turned sideways. Kaido will swing at your life and no, you can't do much about it. You can defend yourself from Kaido's bosses maybe 3 times max before you're out of your hand. So really, if Kaido does not lose to its own variants, Kaido is one of the most unstoppable decks in the game. It's just that being said, Kaido can be prone to a lot of things. You see all bombs, no defense, all defense, no bombs, no Onigashima, and all defense, no Onigashima, and all bombs, which will have you on some very wonky Dawn. So that's kind of the plus and minus. Moving on to Law. Law is a cool deck. His skill is pretty much everything. His skill is going to be able to pay some Dawn to bounce a card and then play a card. And you know, they can't be the same color, and there's a cost restriction of like 5 or less, I believe. However, this allows you to do some crazy things. Whether you're using a searcher and bouncing it back to then play a rusher, there's a lot of things. And because it's 5 costs or less, you can play Rush Luffy, or you can play Law off that ability, like 5-drop Law. And 5-drop Law will then have his bounce and replay ability. Now, the caveat is you have to have a full character board. You have to have 5 characters on board to use this effect. So once you get there, you're smoking. You are literally just going off. However, A lot of cards, a lot of decks have ways to get around this. When you look at Kaido, Kaido can start putting holes in your board and make it so that you have to burn your hand to pieces in order to, you know, get out of that kind of hole. They can just wreck your board a lot of times. In the same fact, the way that Kid is able to go through Red's board, Kid can start doing that to you as well. Kid can start tapping all your things and swinging on them, making sure that you never have a board big enough to start capitalizing on this effect. Dofy can start bouncing them back to your hand to make sure you don't have a board that big. And yeah, even Blue Crocodile has enough cards to be like, nope, don't like that. So when it comes down to it, there's a lot of decks where if they see the right cards, Law isn't making a good board. And then worst of all, Law is a dual color leader, meaning he starts at 4 life, meaning that Zoro and Luffy have a field day with this man. It is very, 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 very possible just to get blitzed out of your mind and be sitting here at a point where you were just praying they don't rip a 5-drop Luffy off the top of their deck or have one in hand, because if he comes through, he's lethal. And that is the issue with Law. Law is mechanically the best deck in the format with how many things he can do. His ceiling is astronomically high. The combination of green and red is one of the most powerful in the game, and it leads you to have so much utility, so much offense. But starting at 5 life in a format where Zoro is probably the most played deck in the game in Global is just not a good place to be in. Not saying you can't stabilize against Zoro, but sometimes Zoro just seeing an optimal hand will just get under you too fast, and you don't even have 5 full life. So you only need to hit you 5 times. That's just rough. Now, the last thing I will say about Law is that if Law goes off, Law goes off. Like I said, the ceiling's incredibly high. It can run all the searchers. It can run Nami. It can run Momonosuke. It can run Bonnie. You're constantly going through your deck, adding your best pieces. You can bounce the Namis to and fro in order to have those things. Like you could bounce a card to play Law. Law could bounce a card to hand to play Nami, and you get Nami's effect again. This is just really, really strong. Next, you've got Blurple or Blue Purple Crocodile. This one I've had the least experience with. I was watching the PPG video from Jonathan Rodriguez. Shout out to him and Duvall. Shout out to Duvall and Extra Time for winning the Dragon Ball Nationals for a 2nd year in a row and going to World to hopefully make his World top 2 times in a row, or his World win 2 times in a row. However, Blurple Crocodile seems to be a very, very much so methodical defensive deck. You get grinded out. You're going to be able to, like, it has combo power for days, counter powers for days. Literally, you're countering. Once your health gets low, you know, or your hand gets low, as long as you have Dawn on Crocodile, you'll be able to do things like Love Mellow and draw once from Love Mellow, draw a 2nd time from Crocodile's effect. You're able to use Spada and do those things. You're able to do so much, and you're cycling. You're not even cycling. You're just drawing over and over and over again. And so even when this deck only has a 4-card hand, there's a chance that it's going to actually just go up higher, and just constantly keep getting cards at the top of the deck in order to put you at a position where you're like, dang, they really comboed at a 9k swing and they only had like 4 cards in hand. This is kind of crazy. That's just how the deck works. Cards like King offer spot removal. Cards like Crocodile, when Crocodile gets on the board, honestly, there's not a lot of decks that can stop that. When Crocodile gets on the board, you can answer him with opposing Dofis. You can board wipe him with 10-drop Kings if your 10-drop Kaidos, if your health isn't low enough yet. You can tap it and try to swing on it, but trying to kill things by battle, especially a 7k or higher, against this deck is not feasible. They will counter cantrip your cheeks into oblivion, and you'll look stupid for wasting most of your turn. So it's kind of a moot point. Now, that being said, you can swing into them with heightened aggression. Red, I don't know. Red's coming in with a lot of 6s, a lot of 7s, and this deck will just eat that up, just counter it constantly. They said that Kaido was their best matchup, and I can believe that, because Kaido's biggest thing is its big swings, but if this deck is constantly drawing as it counters, then you're going to be able to get your way out of a lot of these swings that normally people would just die over time from, because they can only stop it 2, maybe 3 times at best. They say one of their worst matchups is Law, and I'm excited to I'm excited to test this, and I'm going to be doing that within my circles. However, that kind of makes sense, because Kid can be very aggressive, and a lot of Kid swings can be big based on the leader, and Kid's going to be able to tap certain things that they don't want you tapping, like blockers or cards they want you to save for later. So, with that being said, you're going to be able to get it in very, very well with Kid and hopefully turn the tides. That's a matchup I'm interested in testing, but that's going to be later. So yeah, that was my current meta flow. If there's a deck that you think should be on here that isn't on here, please let me know and we can talk it out in the comments. But I am very, very, very excited to see if this changes the further we get towards the start of the Treasure Cups, and if the Treasure Cup reflect this themselves. So yeah, let me know how you guys like this video. Remember, if we get to 100 likes in this video, I'll add a second giveaway Film Red deck in February and a second giveaway Black Marine deck in March. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for the support, and I will see you in the next One Piece TCG video.